On the 25th of December 2025, Christmas Day, a moment traditionally associated with peace US, President Donald Trump unexpectedly announced that the United States had carried out a series of powerful and deadly airstrikes against Islamic State ISIL targets in northwestern Nigeria. The announcement quickly spread across global media outlets, not only because of the military action itself, but also because of its timing and the way it was framed. According to Trump, the strikes were launched in response to escalating violence that he claimed was primarily targeting innocent Christians, sending what he described as a strong deterrent message to extremist groups. In his public statement, President Trump used characteristically forceful language, calling the operation a deadly blow against what he described as radical Islamic terrorists. He emphasized that Washington would show zero tolerance toward any group threatening civilians and religious communities. Trump's repeated focus on the protection of Christians immediately drew attention. Supporters viewed it as evidence that he was delivering on promises of strong security and religious freedom. Critics, however, warn that framing the conflict primarily in religious terms could further complicate an already fragile situation in a deeply diverse country like Nigeria. According to Western media reports and U.S. officials, the airstrikes took place in Sokoto State, located in northwestern Nigeria. This detail is significant, as most counterterrorism operations in Nigeria over the past decade have focused on the northeast, the long-standing stronghold of Boko Haram and its offshoots. Analysts suggest that the shift in geographic focus reflects the expanding reach of ISIL-linked groups across the Sahel, where porous borders, difficult terrain, and weak state presence create fertile ground for militant expansion. When ISIL is mentioned in the Nigerian context, Boko Haram often comes to mind. However, recent reporting indicates that new armed groups aligned with ISIL have emerged in northwestern Nigeria, sometimes referred to locally by names such as Lakurawa. These groups do more than carry out attacks. They impose harsh rules, seize limited territorial control, and engage in criminal activities including kidnapping, smuggling, and extortion. As a result, the boundary between terrorism and organized crime in Nigeria has become increasingly blurred. The U.S. Africa Command, AFRICOM, confirmed that the airstrikes were conducted with intelligence sharing and coordination with the Nigerian government. According to its statement, the operation aimed to degrade militant capabilities while minimizing risks to civilians. However, AFRICOM did not release specific casualty figures or details regarding the aircraft and munitions used. This lack of transparency has raised concerns among observers and human rights groups about the ability to independently assess the humanitarian impact of the operation. Nigeria's government acknowledged security cooperation with the United States, but expressed reservations about how the conflict was described by President Trump. Nigerian officials stressed that extremist violence in the country does not target Christians alone, affecting Muslim communities and others as well. For years, Nigerian authorities have warned that turning the crisis into a religious narrative risks deepening internal divisions in a nation already sensitive to ethnic and religious tensions. Beyond ISIL-linked groups, Nigeria struggles with a wide range of security threats: armed banditry, farmer-herder conflicts, land disputes, and widespread kidnappings for ransom. Poverty, unemployment, weak governance, and climate pressures have pushed many rural regions into cycles of violence. In this context, airstrikes from abroad may address symptoms rather than root causes, offering only temporary relief. Trump's decision to announce the strikes on Christmas Day is widely viewed as symbolic and politically calculated. Emphasizing the defense of Christians resonates strongly with segments of conservative and evangelical voters in the United States, particularly in a polarized political climate. At the same time, the move placed diplomatic pressure on Nigeria, forcing Abuja to respond carefully, balancing security cooperation with the need to avoid being drawn into a religiously charged narrative. In the short term, the airstrikes may disrupt militant operations and reinforce U.S. military influence in the Sahel region. Over the longer term, however, risks remain significant. militant retaliation, escalating violence, and the use of the strikes as recruitment propaganda are all real possibilities. International organizations have repeatedly warned that military action alone cannot deliver lasting stability without parallel investments in development, reconciliation, and governance reforms. The US. Airstrikes in northwestern Nigeria represent more than a tactical military operation. They are a multi-layered political and strategic message. While they reflect Washington's determination to counter global terrorist threats, they also expose the limits of military power in addressing deeply rooted, complex crises. The central question remains: can bombs bring lasting stability, or will they merely reshape and prolong the cycle of conflict?